guys. All right, welcome back to the interview room here at Little Caesars Arena as we preview the 2024 Midwest Regional Final here in Detroit. We're pleased to be joined by the top-seeded Purdue Boilermakers, who will face second-seeded Tennessee on Sunday at 2:20 p.m. on CBS. Please remember to silence your cell phones as a courtesy to the team members and other media in the room. Please raise your hand for a microphone to be brought to you, and when you do ask a question, please introduce yourself and your media affiliation. Please note that the recording of press conferences on cameras or on cell phones is prohibited throughout the rest of the Midwest Regional. From your left to your right, we are joined by head coach Matt Painter, Braden Smith, Lance Jones, Fletcher Loyer, and Zach Edey. Purdue student athletes will be available until 4:03 p.m. and then we'll continue with Coach Painter for an additional 20 minutes. The student athletes will then go to the breakout rooms off to your immediate right when you exit the media room. With that, we'll start with an opening statement from Coach Painter.
Obviously really excited about being able to compete against Tennessee. Thought they obviously had played a really good game against Creighton. Anytime both teams shoot the ball well from three and also shoot the ball well from the free throw line, you're going to have just some slight differences on who wins the game. I thought Tennessee's just overall toughness and physicality was a separator, and that was something after we played them in Hawaii that really stood out to us. They do a great job of pressuring the basketball. They do a great job of taking away passes and just being physical across the board. And obviously Coach Barnes is one of the best coaches in the country, but they have all the pieces. They have quickness, they have athleticism, they have good guard play. They have an All-American in Connect who is very, very dangerous. They have good size on their front line. So, we know this is going to be an absolute battle. And with that being said, we're looking forward to it.
Thanks, Coach. Let's go to questions, please. We'll start in the front row on the left.
Vedant of the Global Kid Media. Coach Painter, you've mentioned multiple times when you have 13 turnovers or less how successful this team is. Tennessee has a relentless defensive pressure, almost full court, and their opponents average 13.1 turnovers per game. What does this team need to do to protect the ball?
Yeah, and they're one of the teams that we had. We're 6-4 when we have over, from 14 to 17 turnovers. 17 is the most turnovers we had this year in the game. So from 14 to 17, they're one of the teams that we got to win against. So we're 6-4 when we get above it. So it's not like we lose all those games. We still win 60% of those games. It's for us, it's being able to get stops, so we can push the basketball and kind of get the tempo. For them, it's scoring the basketball and setting their defense. It's the flip of it, right? So they do such a good job of setting their defense and then just getting into you. But it's just handling pressure. It's nothing that we haven't seen all year, especially the schedule we've played, just like they've seen everything. They played a great schedule. We've played a great schedule. We're both from great leagues. So we see a lot of things throughout the year. It's just going to be, you hope your defense is better than their offense, and you hope your offense is better than their defense, right? When it comes down to their pressure and what they're able to do, you've got to be able to pass and catch, but you also got to be able to just handle the basketball with confidence, but also execute. We run a lot of stuff. And whatever we're doing, just, simply do your job, make the right reads, make the right plays and right passes, but be aggressive. As long as you're aggressive, doing what we work on, things are going to work out for us.
We'll stay on the left side here in the front row.
Sam King, Lafayette Journal and Courier. Matt, I think it was about a few weeks ago, Tom Izzo said, don't judge your program on NCAA tournament success, but you know the deal. That's what you get judged on ultimately. Right. How big of a feather in the cap would this be if you're able to kind of get over that hump tomorrow?
Oh, it'd be huge. It's been our goal to win a national championship. So we feel like we're halfway there, and we've worked really hard for it. We've had, like you're referencing to, we've had some disappointing losses in the NCAA tournament, and you want to rectify that. You want to use that as motivation. I think we've done that, and just keep playing good basketball. But not to take away, these guys up here. Not all of them have been here the whole time, but Zach has. We've been undefeated non-conference for 3 straight years. And one of the best schedules in the country. And then we won our league by 3 games in back-to-back years. And so for the people that compete, the players and the coaches, those things do matter. But the number one thing is how you play in the tournament. So we've played well so far, but, you know, hopefully this is just a start for us.
Fourth row on the right.
Myron Metcalf, ESPN. Zach, a lot of people talk about the fouls that you draw, but what's it like to sense when guys are just getting tired of you having to guard you and fatigue and everything that sets in, and how do you exploit that in those moments?
Yeah, obviously teams, they want, like, they can't just let me get to my spots and let me get my shot, so it's in every team's game plan just to play physical with me, and when you play physical, it leads to fouls. Obviously, it's just kind of part of the game. It's part of their game plan. There's nothing I can really do to change it.
Additional questions. Let's go to the third row here on the left.
I'm Matt, Bob Kravitz with Indy Monthly. You said the other day that you wanted to build your program without losing your soul. And I wonder if you could expand on that. What does that mean? And does it mean the same thing now in the age of NIL and the portal?
No, it really doesn't. It's actually a line I stole from reading one of Tony Dungy's books, and I had a lot of respect for him. I've heard him speak at a clinic in Gainesville, and just how he carried himself. You know, I have a lot of respect. I don't know him personally for how he was. It just seemed like, you know, he coached the game of football, but also had his own values, and he wasn't someone who yells and screams all the time, and I'm someone that doesn't yell and scream all the time also. And so I still think you can have discipline that way. But, like, you know, you shouldn't be rewarded for doing what you're supposed to do. Like, you stand up here and say, hey, we do things the right way. You hear these coaches say that, you know, like, you're supposed to do things the right way, right? Like, you shouldn't get an award for that, you know, but there should be consequences for the people in our business that don't. And that gets pretty frustrating when we don't have a governing body that can handle situations like that. That's what's frustrating, because you're supposed to be setting an example for these guys right here, not to have a great basketball career, but to have a better life because of the opportunity of a scholarship. And so I think, you know, you got to stand for something and be able to do things the right way. And if you get your ass kicked and you lose, like, so be it. But we glorify too many people who just win at all costs. And I think it's important for these guys to understand that, like, you know, the guy I played for called it being a company man. Like, learn to be a company man. Like, you're going to leave here and go to an NBA organization or go play overseas or go work at Eli Lilly or do what's best for that organization or do what's best for that company. And if you can do that and put your best foot forward, you know, good things are going to happen.
Let's go to the third row here on the right.
Todd Golden with CNHI. Braden, it was already spoken about the pressure that Tennessee applies to guards. How do you mentally prepare for that, given how many games you played? And also, how many different defenses have you seen against the post feed that you try to get into Zach, and how have you kind of dealt with that over your time?
Yeah, so Tennessee's a really good defensive team. They got really good defensive guards. So, I mean, just handling the ball and just getting the ball in the right spots, I think, is going to be our biggest kind of just goal. And then once we do that, I feel like if they're out pressuring us, we throw it into Z, it's going to be hard for them to cover that as well. And then what was the part of your second question? Sorry.
Just how many different coverages have you seen?
Oh, yeah. I got you. Yeah, I mean, I think we've been through every situation. I mean, for the 2 years we've been here and we've played, I mean, I think we've seen everything. We've been through everything, and we kind of just understand, like, if they do this, we'll go do that, or they do that, we go do this. Like, I think we just understand to kind of just move along with the game.
We're going to go for the next three questions. We're going to be on the left side. We'll go to the third row in the middle.
Gabe Fryman, Purdue Exponent. Zach, there's a clip going around online of last night of Miles kind of putting the sticker on the bracket after you guys won, kind of nonchalantly, nobody's celebrating. As a senior, is that kind of like signifying your guys' mindset, like, okay, we won, but that bigger goal's ahead, like no celebrations, job's not finished?
Yeah, for sure. Like, this has been the tournament that we've been hyper-focused on all year, obviously. We're not satisfied with just making the Elite Eight. We want to keep pushing. Like, we know what we have on this roster. We know what we have in this team. And we know we can accomplish really big things, so we just want to keep pushing and not get too caught up in one win.
Row four on the left with Larry.
Larry Lage from AP. Lance, how much did you match up with Dalton Connect in the last game, and what does he bring to the table that you have to counter?
I matched up with him, you know, a decent amount. You know, he's an All-American, like Coach said earlier. You know, he plays with, you know, good pace. He gets to his spot. So I'm just going to try to limit his touches, try to make it hard for him, and just make it uncomfortable for him.
Up to the second row.
Israel Schumann from the Purdue Exponent. Just, you know, for any of the players, the way Matt was talking about preparing you guys for life, being a company man, off the court stuff. You guys have probably played and won for coaches that were a lot different. You know, maybe not all nice guys, you know, quote unquote. So just how different is that, and how much do you appreciate that?
Fletcher, want to take that one?
It means the world to us. We put a lot of time into it. Our coaching staff does as well. And when you got that level of trust with the guy that's in charge, it means a lot. It puts a lot of trust in us players to go trust one another when the guy at the top of everything puts it all into us as well.
We'll go to the right side here on the first row.
Ryan Bonaparte, Hammer and Rails. For Lance, you and Dalton Connect have been two of the biggest additions by way of the transfer portal this season. Can you just kind of touch on how important that has been for your career path and across the country?
Yeah. You know, it was a chance that I took. You know, the grass isn't always green on the other side. But, you know, the way that these guys and, you know, the coaches have accepted me with open arms has just made this experience so much easier for me. You know, I didn't know what I was going to expect coming into it, just because I'm the new kid on the block. But I mean, it feels like I've been here for all my 5 years, and you know, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I enjoy being with these guys every day. You know, like I told them, you know, walking in here, they keep me young.
We'll go to the second row here with Joe.
Joe Rexroyd with The Athletic for Braden. As you watch Zakai Ziegler play now, how different does he look compared to what you saw from him in Hawaii?
Yeah, so I think he was just coming back from injury in Hawaii, so he was just getting a little bit of minutes restriction and stuff. So I think he's a lot more confident player now. He's playing like he did before the injury, and I just think he's a really good player. I mean, he's using that All-American level player, so I think it's just going to be tough trying to stop him and just trying to keep him in front of us.
Back to the left side in the first row here.
Vedant Gupta, Global Kid Media. Kind of going back to that company, man, for the players, you've got a maximum of a little over a week of the season left. If you think about the things that Coach Painter teaches you on and off the court, do any of you have a story that you'd like to share that's maybe a funny one?
Who wants to start? Who's that question directed to?
I mean, he says a lot of funny stuff. He's got a lot of funny references. But I think the thing that just sticks with us most is just to have fun while doing our hard work. I think it's kind of short and sweet, but like it has a lot of meaning to it. I think if you work hard every single day, you come in every single day, but you make it fun and you smile, you have fun. I think it's makes it a lot better.
We'll go to the second row here.
Brian Newbert from goldblack.com. Fletcher, you know, there's a perception out there that you guys shoot a ton of free throws. Zach lives at the foul line, and that's kind of why Purdue wins. But when you look at the games, a lot of the games where you've shot the least free throws are some of your best offensive performances of the year, most efficient offensive performances. Is there something to be said for, like, game flow and it not stopping and starting constantly? In terms of the offensive rhythm you get in?
Yeah, definitely. I think when we can get out and run in transition and we can get the ball moving, we get into our motion, and it's not just all getting it to them on that block and team swarming and fouling them, because when they do swarm like that, they do foul, and it's obvious. And if you don't think they do, you should just watch more basketball. But I think when we get out and we're running and we're making shots, it just opens up so much more for Zach to get him more one-on-one deep touches, and then with that, that's how we flow, and that's how we get more efficient games without getting stopped at the line all the time.
We'll go to the the third row on the right.
Yeah, David Cobb from CBS. For Fletcher and Braden, growing up with connections to the state of Indiana and understanding the history of this program, what does it mean for y'all to now be a part of this postseason journey and sort of be in the midst of a potentially historic situation for the program?
Braden, want to start that one?
Yeah, no, it means a lot, especially in Indiana. I mean, it's a basketball state, so I mean, you just kind of grow up with it, and it's just always been around, and it's been good here. So I mean, just seeing everything that Purdue has done through the years, and just how good they have been, and just being a part of this, and hopefully making it 3 more games, and just experiencing that with these guys and coach. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that deserve it, and we work our butt off every year, and I think winning this would mean the most.
Fletcher?
Yeah, right now it's everything to us. It's what our minds are on 24/7, and to see kind of these last few years, kind of how it's played out and how much work these guys and in recent years have put in, it stinks. And you just want to get the program, the university, everybody over that hump. And it's what we want to do and what we're going to work hard as hell to do on Sunday.
We're going to have 2 questions in the second row on the left. We'll start on the end.
Yeah, Matt, just the way you guys have ran, you guys are kind of known as Big Man U now through the years. Where did that belief in running your program and your system that way come from, and how long have you held it?
Yeah, well, just for me personally, Carl Landry was our best player when we got the job, and so he played 10 years in the NBA, and we circled around him, and then we had a 2-guard named David Teague. And so, like, anytime you have success in a program, you use your former players as part of recruiting going forward. When it comes to guard play, in the NCAA tournament 5 years ago, I thought Carson Edwards and Ryan Klein were fabulous. I think it helped us. We showed clips of Dakota Mathias and Ryan Klein to Fletch and said, like, here's how we kind of look at you. Here's, where you can, and we ran a lot of stuff for him, right? But we've just seen, Etuan Moore was a great player for us. Jaden Ivey, obviously, here with the Pistons, was a lottery pick. So we've had some really good guards, but like the bigs, it seems like every year we've had a guy. Obviously, Zach being the best. But, from Jawan Johnson to Caleb Swanigan to Isaac Haas to A.J. Hammonds to Travion Williams. I'm probably leaving somebody out there. We've had some, a lot of all-conference bigs. And so when we sit down to talk to somebody who's next, you got a lot of people there. I think the one thing that you can show now analytically is there's a lot of great programs out there that do not utilize their big guys. And my whole thing is I'm going to circle it around our best players. And, whether you're big, small, in between, it doesn't matter. You got to do what's best for your program. So I let things organically happen. I watch a lot. I break down things and let our coaches work. I just watch people. And I'm a big believer in guys that believe in themselves. And if you don't believe in you and you don't put the work into it, it comes out. Because everybody has doubt as a player. I don't care who you are. Everybody battles doubt. And so, but who can get through that and who can get through that adversity and really, really believe in themselves. But when you're putting a system together and you've had guys, we've learned a lot through Isaac Haas, through A.J. Hammonds to get to Zach. You learn a lot. You learn how people handle them. You learn how people foul them. You learn how people double them. And then you just kind of build from that. But when you get to the recruiting piece of it, now you have a lot of data to show them and say, you will get the basketball if this is who you are. I'm not going to throw the basketball to someone who can't get the job done, all right? But if you can get the job done, then, we're going to get you the basketball. But it doesn't hold any differently for our program, no matter what position you're in. We're just going to circle it around our best scorers, and then that's basketball. A lot of people don't talk that way in recruiting. They tell everybody this is how it's going to work for you. Then they get there, then things change real quick, right? They're going to still go with the best. They're going to do what I say, but they're not always going to say it. And that's where kids got to do a better job of looking through it and getting with trustworthy people because, now you want to be able to walk in there, and at Purdue, you're just on earning ground. If you earn it, you get it. But if you don't earn it, then nothing was promised to you. So now we still have a good relationship.
We'll go to the other side here in the second row. Just a reminder, we have about 2 minutes left with the players. So let's prioritize those questions, please.
Wes Rucker, 24/7 Sports. Zach, are you the kind of guy who wants to think of a game like this as just another game, or are you someone who sort of likes, making it a big game in your mind because you think you'll play better? And why do you think you are that, whichever way it is?
Well, I mean, it's not another game, so you can't treat it like that, obviously, but it's still just basketball. The rules are the same as every game we've played. Refs are the same. We've played this team before. Like it's still just basketball, but it's obviously a big game.
We'll go to the right side here. Again, 1 or 2 more for the players.
Matt, do you get a chance this time of year to self-scout very much to pick up on tendencies that you might be giving away to other teams? Does the tournament lend itself to that? Does it muck things up potentially? How do you kind of approach that? The reason I bring that up is on one of the post-game shows last night, I think Jay Wright said that a lot of the post feeds to Zach come in from one side of the floor. And I'm wondering if you give yourself the opportunity to look at yourself that way to try to figure things out.
Yeah, well, the hardest thing to do and handle a post guy is be able to pass from the top because they don't know whether to come from the left or the right. And you're going to use the left block more with the right-handed player because he's more comfortable going over his left shoulder. So, like, the basketball people, like what he said was, it's obvious, right? You want a lefty on the other block, you want there. So if you have, Zach Randolph, you have Wayman Tisdale, you're going to the other block. That's, because they're strong, they're there. And that's the other thing that really comes into play is Zach's, grown into a really good passer. You want him to naturally be able to pass with his right hand. When he gets to the other block, he can still score and make plays. Like he posted up 3 or 4 times on the other block. But when they come on the double, that's where he opens up. So instead of passing across his body, he opens up, and then he looks at you. Because anytime you open up and you see it, now you don't want to see 2/3 of the court. You don't want to see half of the court. You want to open up and see the whole court, because you can always turn back around and put your back to the defender and get your post move. But if not, then you need to pass out, and we do a lot of reposting. So that's all he was referencing, something like that. He wasn't, giving any clues to everybody. Rick Barnes totally understands where they know what we're doing. Like, they know what we're going to. It's kind of you're trying to show a lot of different ways how to do one thing. It's like we do a lot of different ball screens for Braden, and Braden can get a layup, Braden can get a pull-up, but Braden's also going to pass and try to manipulate the defense on what you're going to do. But we also run a lot of ball screen things to make you handle all that and stop all that, and then we're getting the ball to Zach. So it's not just, one screen, throw it in. But if you're going to allow us to do that, or we got somebody in foul trouble, we get real simple on you. We don't try to think what's going on. So at the end of the game, we call it killing the dragon. We're just going to go to if we see something and you can't stop it, we're going to go to it every single time. Like Cam made a great move and scored it. Then he was going to make the same move, and here I am yelling at him, and I probably should just leave it alone because it wasn't that bad of a move. He just traveled. But we had him on the hook. And when you got him on the hook, and you can get IK out of the game, you can get Anton out of the game, like those are big, big pieces for a team that only wants to play 7 people. So if you can get some people there, now they're not, you're getting in the bonus, you're shooting free throws, you're getting their backups in the game. And sometimes the backups are the same, but there's just a lot of positives there, and you're shooting from 5 feet, right?
That's all the time we have for the student athletes, guys. You can head over to the breakout rooms. Again, those are off to your immediate right when you exit the interview room. We'll continue here shortly with Coach Painter for the next 15 minutes or so.
Don't forget your phone.
We'll get those name cards to your way as well. Okay, let's continue with Coach Painter in the back left. I'm sorry, back right.
Ben McKee, 24/7 Sports. Matt, I'm curious what you've seen from Zakai Ziegler as you prepare for this game. Obviously, not on a minutes restriction this time around. Your perception of the biggest difference from him early in the season to now?
Yeah, obviously, Braden mentioned it. He was coming off that injury and was on some minutes restriction. And, he's athletic, he's quick, he can break you down off the dribble, he can put good pressure on the basketball. He's just one of the best point guards in the country, but he's a two-way player. You have to be a two-way player for Coach Barnes. You have to guard. Like that's a non-negotiable. And so we've played him multiple times. We played him in the Bahamas. We've played him in the NCAA tournament. We've played him in Hawaii. So we've had a lot of experience of going against them and how competitive they are. But as Coach Barnes is point guard, like he's got to run the show, but he's also got to set the tone from a defensive standpoint and get into the ball handler and put pressure on the ball. So he's one of the best players in the country.
Let's go to the second row here.
Matt, just kind of going back to your comments on the coaching profession, just wondering, first of all, your relationship with Rick Barnes, and then also just kind of how you view his career from afar.
Well, obviously he's hung in there for a long time. I don't know if I'll be able to match that in terms of years. But his teams always play hard. They always compete. And he reminds me of a lot of the guy I played for, to be frank with you. It's you know what you're getting, man, but you got to be ready to fight. It's not two-hand touch. It's tackle football, man. You got to be hooked up, and you got to be ready to go. And if you do that, then you got a chance to win. Doesn't mean you will win, but if you don't, then you have no chance to win. But no, I got a lot of respect for him. He's a good guy. He's a good coach. I don't know him that well. We've had a couple conversations, obviously, when we played in Hawaii. But no, I got a lot of respect for him. Reminds me a lot of Coach Katie.
Third row on the right.
Hey, Coach, Edey Pels with AP. You talked a lot or a little today about not making promises that you aren't sure you're going to be able to keep. So, against that backdrop, I'm just kind of curious, Like, what do you think of NIL
Yeah.
and the world we're in now, where a lot of kind of promises get
Right.
made?
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with making money off your name, image, and likeness. It's just not name, image, and likeness. You know, it's in the spring, it's an auction. You know, and so like, but these guys generate a lot of money, and there's nothing wrong with them, you know, getting paid for it. And if that's their market value, then so be it. But they didn't do a good job of putting the proper guardrails on there. I think they're up. I don't think they're up against it. They're up against it. They simply don't win any court cases. And, you know, I think we got to really look at the structuring of everything. They obviously need some help, and they haven't gotten that help. And, you know, we'll see how things go. I think Charles Baker is really trying to do that. I've been in those rooms and I've sat there and we've talked about it. The thing that really happened was the timing of the portal, name, image, and likeness, and COVID all at the same time. It was just such a slam. And now it was so hard, you know, for that. But, you know, these guys generate a lot of money, and there's nothing wrong with them getting paid. But we got to figure out a system how to do this, but calling it something that it's not. And there's nothing wrong with someone making money off their name, image, and likeness, but, you know, you're getting in the spring here, and it's just, I can't recruit a kid. We got great education, and we got great people because I don't have a good number. Like that wasn't the intentions. But we threw it out in the pond without proper guardrails, and now here we swim. So I sign a lot of guys in the fall, and I stay out of the spring. The spring stinks. And so all these guys are talking about that. I'm not. So when our season's over, like, you know, maybe people leave, right? It's going to come and find me at some point. But we've had, going to the fourth year, we'll have 2 transfers in 4 years, and that's the fewest amount in high majors. So I'm not the person to really talk about that. But at low to mid majors, when you get good players, and then, you know, you got to be able to get them, then you got to be able to keep them. If you can't keep them, you can't grow them. So, like, how are they supposed to survive? And you guys keep seeing good mid-major teams and low-major teams pop up and here and there, but, like, you know, they're the ones that recruited them. They're the ones that thought they were a good player. Us high majors didn't think they were good enough, but now once they get there, you lose them. So it's like it doesn't seem fair, right? And then if any time somebody's not happy, they should be able to transfer. So I served as the only coach on the one-time transfer subcommittee. And I always said, like, I got to change my resume for the 3-time, one-time transfer subcommittee. Because when they said that, that was it, right? They said, like, when you use your one-time transfer. So, like, what I thought made sense to it was not let somebody after their first year transfer and use their one-time transfer after that first year. After your second and third year, then be able to use that one-time transfer. Now it's like they just keep moving. Like, we've had a couple guys in our league that have already used it, and now they, you know, there's no extenuating circumstances, and they're just going to transfer. Well, there's a lot of coaches last spring that were told, hey, those guys aren't going to be eligible. So they didn't recruit those guys because they already used their one-time transfer, and then they end up being eligible. And now they feel like, hold on now. You know, we called the NCAA, we talked to people in power. They said, no, they've already used it, and since they haven't graduated, they can't now, you know, be eligible. And then they end up getting eligible because they get a waiver, or they threaten to sue, or whatever they did. Each situation's different. So just a lot of confusement. I think a lot of times when you hear coaches such as myself talk, like, this doesn't affect me personally. It's affecting the masses, though. When you hear that, it sounds like sour grapes, but we just want an even playing field so we know how to operate. And then what you don't want is 99% of these kids aren't pros, but so many people getting scholarships, whether you get it through athletics or something else, really springboards you into a better situation in your life and your career. So that's what I always tell these guys. I mean, you're going to be a former athlete, former basketball player for 50 years. Like, think about that. Like, use this opportunity to now have a better life, not just a better basketball career, without stealing your basketball dream. And so if you can have that balance and that understanding and that perspective, then, you know, you're beating the system, because now you're a good basketball player. Now, you know, you can use the brand of Purdue. But if you've jumped around with 3-4 schools in 5 years, like, you've been loyal to nobody. And now maybe you played better at a certain place, or you got more touches, or you got more shots. Well, what about, you know, I'm not in this position without Gene Cady and Bruce Weber. Sorry. It just, my out of bounds plays aren't that good, but those guys looked after me. Those guys helped me. But I was a bad basketball player, and I stayed, and we stayed loyal. And now when I need someone to help me, they pick up the phone and they've helped me, and I've gotten in this position because I've had a lot of help from Purdue people, not just in this job, but in other jobs. Some of these guys and what they get into, man, we all know, like, who's connected you to your job. Like, nobody just gets things on their own all the time. We have people that help you. And I always talk to our guys about, think about the success you've had. Now write down every person on a piece of paper that's helped you. I bet you need another piece of paper. We all need that help, and that's all I'm trying to do, is trying to make sure that these guys, and I've been on the phone with student athletes that are on these committees and try to talk to them and say, you want the freedom to do whatever the hell you want, and I just want what's best for you. Like, think if you just did whatever the hell you want and your parents just let you do what you want. Like, where would you be? Like, you got to have some people that sit around and say, no, we're not doing that. This is what's best for you. And if some of this stuff we're talking about is best for them, then so be it. But we've gotten away from that. We're dodging lawsuits, and I think there's student athletes out there that are getting punished for it, even though they get to move and do what they want.
Let's go to the front row here on the right.
Matt, it's no secret that Braden and Zach are two of the most effective players in the country. Does it feel any more effective for these two just because they play the 1 and the 5?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a really good question. Because if you talked in theory about basketball, I think that's where you would start, But some of the greatest basketball players, if not the greatest basketball player ever, is not a point guard really, and is not a 5. And so, like, there's value at every position, and I don't want to take away from that, but you would probably start with those two positions, especially from a point guard standpoint in today's game. You need that floor general. Obviously, Zach has been able to dominate when he gets it, but they take a lot of things away from Zach, and then he gets on the glass too. So he earns his. Like, sometimes it's different how he earns it, but he's always working and trying to get there. But no, both of those guys are, pillars, in our system and what we do. But I think they'd be pillars at a lot of places.
Let's go to left side in the third row, in the middle.
Hey, Matt. Bob Kravitz, Indy Monthly. As a Cubs fan, you know something about delayed gratification. Now, it's only been 44 years, not 100 and whatever it was with the Cubs. But do you sense, being around Purdue people, the level of desperation they feel to finally get over the hump?
Yeah, I feel it. I was a Purdue basketball player, and then I was a Purdue fan. Then I was a Purdue assistant coach. Now I'm the Purdue head coach. So everybody feels it. No different than rooting for the Cubs. Like, you just want it, right? That's your passion. I'm a little bit different towards the Cubs than probably people are towards me, because I understand that there's tough decisions to be made, and it's hard, and it's competition, and there's a lot of people out there, but yeah, I think, we feel it just like them because we pull for Purdue. We pull for other sports at Purdue. We want to see Purdue do well. But yeah, it's been a long time since you've been to a Final Four, and we'd like to be able to accomplish that, but we know Tennessee's in the way, and they have a great team, and we're going to have to play well.
We'll stay in the third row.
Coach, earlier you talked about how your guys' game is getting those stops and playing in transition. How much does it help you guys to have a guard like Braden that's so willing to crash the boards instead of some guards that kind of wait, let the big man get the board, Braden gets that board, and he's immediately going? Right.
Yeah, it's great that he's not a great box-out guy, but he's great at going to get it. So anytime you deal with someone like Zach, who's going to get around 10 defensive rebounds a game. Maybe he's not quite there in his average, but he's going to get a lot, right? To have another player that that is quick to the basketball, that can get those long rebounds and push it. Because I always talk about, tough perimeter shots should be like turnovers. Because normally when someone takes a really tough shot, sometimes they can surprise their teammates. Sometimes the way the ball, gets off the rim because it's a bad shot or a bad three or a low shot clock play. Let's treat them like turnovers. Everybody seems to sprint when you see that turnover. So then you get that advantageous break, right? You get a primary break, whether that's 4-on-2, 4-on-3, 3-on-2, but you got to try to do that from rebounding too. So if you got the ball already in the hands of the person that you want to push it, so when he gets the rebound, we push it. When everybody else gets the rebound, they look for him. And he's done a great job of that for us in transition this year.
We'll go to the third row here. Just time for a couple more guys.
Hey, Matt, David Cobb, CBS Sports. What was your perception of Purdue basketball growing up, and what's been the secret sauce of 44 years with just 2 coaches for your program?
Right. It's interesting because I grew up an Indiana fan. So most of my family went to Indiana, so I grew up an Indiana basketball fan. And then I rooted against Purdue. And then when they started recruiting me, I was emotional more than anything. And I was like, I don't like Purdue. I don't want to go to Purdue. And my dad has 2 degrees from Indiana, and he just said, it was my first lesson in recruiting, and I've always used it in recruiting. And he just said, Purdue has good education. And he just says, and Purdue always wins more than they should. And they have a great head coach, and he's got discipline. And he just said, and you're going to play for someone who has discipline. And he was a big Coach Knight fan. And so, that was along the lines right there. And he said, it's what I said earlier in here. You're not going to do what you want to do. You're going to do what's best for you. And that always resonated with me in terms of any decision I've ever made. And so, you got to do some things you don't want to do, but it's still better for you to do that. And don't always think about yourself. Think about others around you and stuff like that. But, I wonder why their gym was so damn dark when I was a kid. Do you remember that? Anybody here? Indiana people? Their gym was dark, and they flipped the lights on my freshman year. So that was the last year. So when they had games, the court was lit, and the stands were dark. And we would always, so when you grew up, I don't want to sound old here, but, cable hit in 1980, 81. That meant 12 channels. That was cable then, okay? But besides that, you had your 3 channels, main channels, and you had Channel 4, which was kind of fuzzy. So you had to get your rabbit ears with the tinfoil and get them all lined up. But that's what covered Big Ten basketball. Raycom covered Big Ten basketball. So that's all you knew before ESPN hit, or your game of the week on CBS, on NBC, on the weekend. So that's all you knew. So you knew the Big Ten, but you knew the elite schools in the country because they're in the game of the week. But anybody in between, you really didn't have a feel for until the NCAA tournament came. The coverage was just so different. So that was Big Ten country. So when you started to get recruited, when other people would jump in, they just didn't have the same affinity as a Big Ten school would have for you. I wanted to play in the Big Ten, and then it came down to Minnesota, Michigan State, and Purdue for me. I really chose Purdue because of Coach Edey. And when he left our home, I was like, man, everybody else said, back then you didn't stay in the summers and all the time, or at all. And so, everybody else gave me choices. You could do this in the summer, you could do this. And Coach Edey didn't give me any choices. He says, you will go to summer school, or if you don't, you'll get a job. You need to learn to get up and wake up early in the morning and get to work. I was like, the hell with that. You're 17, 18 years old. You're like, I want to shoot jumpers and eat pizza and, have a hell of a time. And so I walked out of there and I told my dad, man, I don't know about that. And he said, that's the only person who told you the truth. He goes, you need him way more than he needs you. And that was a good choice, even though I stunk as a player.
We got time for one more in the front row, and I've been waiting here for a while.
Sam King, Journal and Courier. Matt, you've talked about how unbearable you are after losses, how hard it is as a coach to take those. I wondered, the 2019 Elite Eight, how you don't let it consume you, but I imagine that one was harder to get over than most, right?
Yeah. It'd been much harder if you made a mistake. I just felt like, when we were up 3 and they came down with about 14 seconds to go, if it could get to a manageable, if you foul too early there, it gets to be too much time and a lot more things can happen. Everybody says, you're up 3, you have to foul. You have to foul when the time's right. If it's too much, then, now they can play the foul game to you. And I've done that before. I've fouled pretty early. Then you got to play the foul game again if they go again and they foul quick. But we got our foul around 5 seconds. And that was, it wasn't perfect, but it was in the scenario, it was perfect. And then to be able to get that tap back and for them to make that play. The other thing that people don't realize is that we're up under a minute in overtime. And they make a shot, and then we come down and we don't make a shot, and then now we have to foul, and we never recover from that. So, but there wasn't anything that any of our guys did wrong or coaching wrong. Sometimes when you go back and you make a mistake late in the game like that, and you're going to really beat yourself up when you make a mistake, and you do make mistakes, obviously. that wasn't one of the situations. But a lot of times our mistakes you guys don't even realize, at times. So, but yeah, it's that was tough. But I was still happy for Tony Bennett. It stunk that we couldn't do it, but I was happy if it was going to be anybody. I was glad it was him and the way he's operated and the way he's done things. He's been great for college basketball.
Thanks, Coach. We appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.